Professor Green, it's such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
You're at Santa Clara University, Professor of Ethics. Ethics have taken a different turn, especially with the advent of AI. But you have been looking at ethics and technology, ethics and space. You also mentioned you wrote a book on ethics and space.
Yes.
So let's take from the 30,000 feet level, not literally the space level, but understand, why it is so important to look at technologies, and especially the emerging technologies, and always bring the aspect of ethics into it.
So the number one thing I would say is that technology is constantly giving us more power. It's giving us more choices. Every time we gain the greater efficiency that technology gives us, we have options to do things faster. And when we do things faster, that frees us up to do more tasks in other places. And suddenly it used to be, in the past, we had 98% of people working on farms, for example. Now we only have 2% of people working on farms. And they've all found other things to do. They're running an industrial economy. They're involved in service industries. And this just gives us much more scope of action. When airplanes were invented, it was only a few decades between the invention of the airplane and landing on the moon. And this incredible change that technology enabled for us gives us choices that we never had before, and it also gives us responsibilities that we never had before. In the past, nobody had to worry about space debris. For example, there's all this debris orbiting the Earth now, dead satellites, pieces of satellites that have broken off, things like that. Nobody was responsible for that in the past, but now we are responsible for it. It's something that we've done to our environment, to around ourselves, and it is potentially endangering our ability to explore space in the future. With artificial intelligence, we see that, but with everything that human intelligence can be applied to. All sorts of questions having to do with safety and privacy and environment, how we treat each other, how we receive information, or how we broadcast information out to other people. There are so many more questions now that were not questions that we had in the past, and we have to recognize that responsibility, that we really have to make choices that keep in mind that we all have to live in this world together. How do we make sure that we're building a better future in this world and not building just a chaotic or unthought out or even terrible future?
So in a capitalist-centric economy like ours, there's one aspect is you put a lot of resources to develop new technologies. And the other flip side, if I may, is that there's a race to make the first buck before anybody else does that. So there's very competitive.
Right.
So when you are that competitive, then ethics kind of takes the back seat.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have to evangelize ethics across the board.
Right.
But then human tendency is, they're only going to follow that in the initial stages. Once it comes to commercial aspects of it, then, like I said, ethics takes a back seat. Then we have to bring ethics into the space of laws, to make them abide those things.
Yes.
So how do you see this balance?
The balance is a difficult one. I guess that's the quick response. The much more complicated response is we really need to think about something bigger than just money and just competition. Money, of course, is one objective. It makes the entire economy work, which is a good thing. The economy is very different than it was a century ago or 2 centuries ago. It's we have much broader prosperity, not just in the Western world, but all around the world. And this growth of prosperity is wonderful. It's helpful to people. At the same time, money is not the only objective in life. Money is a tool that needs to be directed towards good uses, whether it means taking care of your family or making sure that people have health care and education and all of those other good sorts of things that are in the world that we want to have broadly accessible and shared worldwide. And so if we think about that and also think about the competition aspect of it, the competitive side of things can be very destructive sometimes. It can lead to it's survival of the most aggressive rather than the most ethical. But I think there are also good examples of where good ethical business decisions are also the best business decisions, period. You don't want to put out a product that is dangerous or that harms people. So, for example, with self-driving cars or with harmful social media and those sorts of things, we've seen lots of examples of people getting killed by self-driving cars or social media spreading misinformation and already breaking society up into little pieces, for example. And so if we think a little bit harder, there are ways that we can still get all the benefits of this technology. We can still contact people, we can still drive cars around or still have safe self-driving cars, but also avoid the negatives that come along with them. And if everybody can slow down a little bit. If, for example, all the companies that were working on self-driving cars talked to each other and said, let's make sure that we're sharing safety data, let's make sure that we are cooperating and collaborating in this space as opposed to fighting with each other, then you're much more likely to get an overall better product in the end, and also create a world that people actually want to live in. People don't want to live in a world where you step out into the street and a self-driving car runs you over. They want to live in a world where it's safe to cross the street.
Well said. I think we have to keep working on this, of showing people what is the right way of using technology for the benefit of all of us, especially if you don't leave this planet, in a better shape for the next generation. Then what is the legacy of our lives then?
Yes, exactly. And that's a good way of putting it, right? We all have a legacy that we leave to the world, and our legacy wants to be one that we're proud of, that our children can be proud of. And so as we are developing technology, or as we are making business decisions related to technology, we have to think bigger picture. We need to think about big picture in terms of space and in terms of time. What is this going to do to the future? What is this going to do on perhaps the more global scale than we're used to thinking about? Many people think about just what's the immediate, quarterly return on this decision, but if we're only thinking 3 months ahead, then we're forgetting that we're living longer than 3 months, right? Our children are living longer than 3 months into the future, and so we need to think on the decades-long scale also.
Again, thank you for the work you do. I really appreciate you coming down and talking to us.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. This is a wonderful place.